For most people, real estate feels solid. Concrete walls, steel beams, roads, bridges, pipes, power lines. It all looks permanent. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one likes to talk about. A house is only as valuable as the infrastructure holding it up. And across the United States, that infrastructure is aging, failing, and in some places dangerously close to collapse. This is not about earthquakes or hurricanes. This is about slow failure. The kind that doesn't make headlines until it's too late. And when it does, property values don't just fall, they disappear. For decades, American cities expanded fast. Suburbs sprawled outward. Highways multiplied. Water systems stretched further and further. But much of the infrastructure supporting these homes was built 50, 70, even 100 years ago. Pipes were never replaced. Bridges were patched, not rebuilt. Power grids were upgraded just enough to survive another year. And now, the bill is coming due. Let's start with a city that shocked the entire country, Flint, Michigan. Flint wasn't destroyed by a natural disaster. It was destroyed by infrastructure failure. A decision to switch water sources exposed residents to lead contamination. Pipes corroded. Water became toxic. And here's what most people don't realize. The housing collapse didn't happen overnight. It happened quietly. Homes became unfinanceable. Buyers vanished. Property values collapsed not because homes were ugly, but because water was unsafe. Once trust in basic infrastructure breaks, real estate has nothing to stand on. Even today, years later, Flint's housing market still hasn't fully recovered because infrastructure failure leaves a stain that doesn't wash off easily. Now look at Jackson, Mississippi, a city where water systems repeatedly failed, sometimes leaving residents without clean water for weeks. Boil water notices became routine. Pipes burst. Treatment plants malfunctioned, and the real estate market reacted exactly how you'd expect. Buyers hesitated. Investors stayed away. Appraisers adjusted downward, because no matter how cheap a home is, no one wants to gamble on basic survival systems. When infrastructure becomes unreliable, property stops being an asset and starts becoming a liability. Next, let's talk about New York City. This might sound surprising, one of the wealthiest cities in the world facing infrastructure risk. Yes, much of New York's subway system, water tunnels, and electrical grid are over a century old. Some water tunnels have never been inspected since they were built. Bridges require constant emergency repairs just to stay operational. And here's the real risk. When infrastructure in dense cities fails, it doesn't fail quietly. It shuts down entire neighborhoods. Blackouts, transit failures, flooded subway lines. Every time this happens, certain neighborhoods take a hit. Not all of New York will collapse, but specific areas already show early warning signs. Buyers pay close attention to reliability. When reliability drops, demand shifts. And when demand shifts, prices follow. Move west to California. Not earthquakes power. California's power grid has become a liability. Wildfire risks forced utilities to implement rolling blackouts. Entire regions lost power for days, sometimes weeks. Homes without power aren't just inconvenient, they're unlivable, and markets noticed. Properties in blackout-prone areas began selling at discounts. Buyers demanded solar systems, backup batteries, or avoided the areas entirely. Infrastructure failure doesn't need to be total. It just needs to be frequent, and frequency kills confidence. Now let's look at Texas. In 2021, a winter storm exposed massive weaknesses in the power grid. Millions lost electricity, water systems failed, homes became unsafe in freezing temperatures. And the most important thing happened afterward. People realized it could happen again. Real estate doesn't respond to one-time events. It responds to repeat risk. After the storm, buyers started asking about grid reliability. Builders marketed energy independence. Insurers adjusted models. That's how infrastructure failure becomes financial risk. Then there's New Orleans, a city protected by pumps, levees, and drainage systems, all of which require constant maintenance. When pumps fail, streets flood. When drainage backs up, neighborhoods suffer. Infrastructure here doesn't just support housing, it keeps it alive. And when systems fail repeatedly, property values decline in very specific ways. Higher elevation areas hold value, lower elevation areas stagnate. or fall. Same city, same culture, completely different futures. In the Midwest, infrastructure failure looks boring but deadly to real estate. Aging bridges, cracked sewer systems, outdated stormwater drainage. Flooding increases not because rain is extreme, but because systems can't handle normal loads anymore. Homes flood from below, basements back up, insurance claims rise, and slowly, values erode. Because buyers don't want surprises. Let's talk about coastal cities: Miami, Norfolk, Charleston. Rising seas don't just flood streets, they infiltrate pipes. Salt water corrodes infrastructure from the inside. Water systems fail faster, foundations weaken, roads crumble, and once infrastructure begins to decay, maintenance costs explode. Who pays? Homeowners. Through taxes, through assessments, through insurance. Eventually, buyers realize they're not just buying a house, they're buying an infrastructure bill. And many walk away. Here's the pattern emerging across the country. Infrastructure failure doesn't cause dramatic housing crashes. It causes selective collapse. Some neighborhoods survive, others slowly empty out. Prices don't drop to zero. They just stop growing while inflation keeps rising. That's real loss. The most dangerous thing about infrastructure risk is that it's invisible to most buyers. You can see a crack in a wall. You can't see corroded pipes underground. By the time problems surface, the market has already adjusted. Banks know this. Insurance companies know this. That's why lending standards tighten in high-risk areas. That's why premiums rise. That's why appraisals change. Infrastructure failure hits real estate from every direction at once. This is not fear-mongering. This is how markets work. Homes are only valuable when they're connected to systems that function. Water, power, transportation, waste removal. Remove any one of those and value collapses. The future of American real estate won't be decided only by location. It will be decided by maintenance. Cities that invest will survive. Cities that delay will decline. And homeowners who ignore infrastructure risk may wake up one day owning something that looks valuable but no one wants to buy. Because in the end, real estate isn't just about land. It's about trust. And when infrastructure fails, trust disappears first. Prices follow.